So, mic check, 1, 2, 3. Yep, works fantastic. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this great talk that I have prepared here. Thanks so much that so many people have joined it. Today we want to talk about GoRouter, GoRouterBuilder, and real-world scenarios. So, what does that mean? Short to myself, I'm a full-stack engineer since 2012. I worked for different mobile apps, like, for example, Sono Motors, for the Trophy app, and now I'm happy to support Zefdesk with their project. I am a father of one, so have not so much time, so I'm very happy to be here again for the second time. And I am a content creator for Flutter Explained, a small YouTube channel where I am allowed to create videos. So I saw a lot of faces from the last time, so happy to see you again. And I'm really enjoying this talk because it is a very, big topic at the end, even though it sounds so easy. So we have 3 things that I have made here for our presentation today. That's one, the basic navigation part where we learn how to navigate in our app with GoRouter. Should be fairly simple. Most of you probably have seen it already somewhere. Then we are talking about shell routing. Pretty much useful if we are working with bottom navigation bars, so that we have creating of sub-navigations. And the last one is deep linking. I heard that there was a lightning talk yesterday about Navigator, and deep linking works out of the box in web, so that is maybe a quite interesting part. But we will also talk about that and how we can implement that stuff. Every year, when I have a presentation somewhere, I try to bring something new. So you are my guinea pigs, more or less, for live coding this year. So if I do something wrong, please let me know. It's going to be a ride. I prepared, of course, everything. But as you know, there happens always stuff with live coding. Okay, so let's have the first look. I brought our app that is currently in beta release that we created since December, where we are working for Zefdesk. And I just have made a short demo what we have everywhere navigations. So you see, for example, that bottom navigation bar, which is an own navigator. We have this bottom navigation bar that is a navigator. All these buttons navigate somewhere. And we faced quite some challenges to implement all that stuff. So we want to talk about how we can do that stuff and do it the right way, and maybe see also what challenges we want to face with that stuff and how we overcome them. So let's get started. Why do we want even a new package for that stuff? You know, it's another package, we have to take care of it, and Navigator works, right? So why should we do that? So first of all, we have the possibility of declarative routing. We have named routes, we have type-safe parameters and navigation, we have nested routing and middleware support. And especially the last one is quite interesting because it's mostly the first thing a developer with navigation experience face. It's if you, for example, log into your app, you want to getting redirected back to the login screen if you lost your token. With that, this one got you covered in GoRouter. Yeah, but also declarative routing, we want to have a more navigation style like in Flutter, you know, that declarative part. So you want to change the URL, and based on the state of the URL, you want to route to a specific place. With that, that's easily possible, and we will see now how it works. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is we want to initialize the router. Should be fairly simple because Material app and Kubernetes app allows us to just execute the router part as soon as we have the GoRouter imported and as a package installed. Inside of that, we will have to configure our stuff. So we have our router configure that takes a GoRouter object. Inside of that, we have a lot of different things like the debug log diagnostics. I also added here a short example how it could look like. So you can see all the different routes that we have. And inside of each route, you can see directly the page. In this case, this is the widget that I've created underneath of it. Especially with more complex states and things like that, you have a very easy way to debug your navigation at the end. And you can also see your sub-navigations and you see shell routes and so on and so forth. That gives you a quite good example on how your app at the end can behave. Great. So how do we define the next parts? Then we add routes at the end. So we saw already the debug code. At this point, we define the routes. We have the object GoRoute with the path parameter that we have to pass in. And here you see one of the downsides, these are strings, you know, then we have slash, for example, and so on. These things we want to get rid of in the future. So what you usually do to avoid this stuff is creating parameters or constants somewhere that replaces these things. For our basic example here, we just leave it as strings and we get the builder. Inside of the builder, we get like state from our navigator, thanks to that we can pass in. But what we also get, we just return a widget here, in this case, our homepage widget, that gets built as soon as this route has been called. Easy. The cool thing about GoRouter is to create a hierarchical structure. That means you can create subroutes underneath of it. So in this case, our homepage has a subroute of profile. Some of you maybe already seen it. There is no slash in front. So that means if you have in the path a subroute, you are not allowed to make this slash, else it will fail. You will get immediately errors. Happens very quickly, red screen of death. So you should be very quickly seeing this. But what's happening here is we have this hierarchical structure, and that will help us in the future. We will talk about go and push in a second. Good. Now how we can use it, we import our GoRouter package in our widget, and we have here a button with the nice little free methods, go, push, and pop. And there are of course also other things, but these are the main things with which you will navigate. In the best case scenario for your app, you will mostly rely on go, and you will nearly never use push or pop. The good thing is Navigator GoRouter has you covered here. So that means if you have this hierarchical structure perfectly set up and you call go, it will pop for you. So that stuff is, the heavy lifting there is taken away for you, which is quite nice. All this stuff allows you to navigate, but I want to make a short introduction about go and push. What are the difference here? Because that happens to most developers who start with GoRouter, that they don't really understand what is the difference here. With Go, let's say you have this structure that you have a home page on top, a profile page, and a profiles details page. And now you select the profiles details page with Go. What happens in your navigator stack is you push the main home route, on top of it is the profile route, and on top of that is the profile details route. We'll see that in a second. So that means my navigation jumps directly to the details page, but if I navigate back, I will come to the profile page. If I do that with push, on the other hand, push will directly put the navigator stack on the home stack, and on top of it, the profile stack, the profile details page. And with that, you navigate back to the home screen instead of the profile page. I talked now a lot. To demonstrate that, I have created a small video. I hope that makes it clear. So on the top one, we go to the profile detail page. I go back. I have a screen in between. If I push, on the other hand, I go back to the home screen immediately. So that is the difference between push, go and pop. Go and push, sorry for that. So to make that graphically again, so here you see our navigator stack. So on the left side, you have the context.go. And with that, you have the home, profile, profiles, details, and on the right side, the push part. That's it as much. So there is not so much magic in behind or anything that could go wrong here, actually. Cool. Next step, routing guards. Just a very short introduction into it. You can say redirect, and this is just a method that you can execute. And in this case, I created a login provider that can be any asynchronous function that you want, and that checks if the user is still logged in. After that, you receive the value. In this case, I just add a Boolean, and I check which route should be going to. If you say null, it will not navigate. If you say it is logged in, it will always navigate in this case. Actually, you want to have that the other way around, but you saw that, right? Cool, but with that, you navigate at the settings location whenever the user is already logged in. That's it. Cool. Parameters. Now comes a very interesting part. I created a route here in this case with two parameters, the ID and the invoice number. It's just a basic example, but what we can do is now access these parameters by calling the state.path parameter and get the value there. That is great, I get the values there, but does someone see a problem with that? Yeah, types, exactly, great, but there is a problem. Where are my types? So we lose the types here, and we don't like that. So for that, we come the first time to our GoRouterBuilder. Well, it's a package, it's a def dependency, it's going with the build runner at the end, and what you can see is something like this. So we have now annotations. And the cool thing about that is we save, first of all, a lot of code because we don't have to write go route and create nested route and stuff. We can do that and define that in this annotation here. In this case, I define the home route. And underneath of it, we have this nice new class which extends the go route data. That one enforces you to override the build method, which just passes you back the object, in this case, the home page. And with that, if we run our build runner, we can then execute things. And the best thing is, here we can now specify what types we want to have for our parameters. So in this case, for example, with the invoice route, we have our ID, and this ID should be an integer. So we say in our GoRouter data that we have a value with the integer, and with that, we let our build runner run, and at the end, we can just execute it like that. So we define the invoice route that we have access to, pass in the ID that we want to go to, and at the end, we directly navigate to the place where we have that ID. Fantastic. So what have we learned? So we know now how to set up GoRouter. We know the difference about go and push. And the last part is how to set parameters. And I think now it's time to try out if everything works well with the technical stuff. So brace yourself. Now is live coding incoming. So I keep that one open and just leave that over there. And I heard already that I have to take 5 seconds break until you see something. So let's see if I can wait that long. So what you probably will see in a second is my shell. So we start really from nothing. That should make it more interesting. So we will have not a project, nothing at all. Could be that it is a little bit small, but I just enter Flutter create E, and we call that project GoRouter Live. That hopefully will create fast. Okay. Probably I still need the Wi-Fi. Let's try that in between. Yeah, so that's the problem. Sorry for that. Another 5 seconds. How much time? Yeah, looks good. So, much better. So we go into the project. I open that whole thing in VS Code in my case now, because that's a bit easier. I think most of you are convenient with that editor. I open a terminal because we want to add 2 packages, right? So we need GoRouter, and we would also like to add Flutter pub add def dependency GoRouterBuilder and the good old build runner. So that means now in our pubspec YAML, we check that just quickly. We have GoRouter, we have the 2 def dependency, fantastic, everything works well. So we create a quick folder called pages. Okay, let's do that right, pages. Inside of which we have the settings. .dart. We have the home.dart, and the last one is our profile.dart. And let's get also the profile details. Cool. We create a stateless widget for our profile details. Whoops. And creating a scaffold with an app bar just to keep the title right? So where we have the text of profile details. So I will copy that over. We have that for home, nearly the same thing. So let's replace that. And so let's see if that works. Fantastic. Profile details we have. And the settings. Good. Is everything big enough? Yeah, looks good. All right, so we create a new file that we call router.dart. And I talked already about the GoRouterBuilder. I said there was a challenge, and one of the challenges was that this file is in only one file. That means GoRouterBuilder requires you to have one big file with all the annotations and stuff. How we overcome this problem was that we said, okay, this file is part of another file so that we can feature per feature create these navigation stuff because, well, it's a lot of code at the end if you have a bigger application with all the routes. So it makes sense to create one file with Dart part options. I don't do that in this demo. It's just a nice idea to have that you be aware of that, how to do that. So, so now router. We create just our settings, go router, and I would like to have a go router object, which we have to import. And inside of here, we have our routes. And I said already, we would like to have these routes with our @annotation. So for that, we have our, let's import that first, typed, what was the name? Type GoRoute. So, and we need our class. Home route extends GoRoute data and const home route. So should be fine. We have to pass in the date, the type, and we have to import things. Path is required, that's true. And slash. So with that, we have now defined nearly everything. We just have to pass in the routes, which in this case will be generated. So it is app routes, will be from the generator. If we go now to our terminal, we can now run Dart, run build, runner build. And easy as that, hopefully, if I didn't make any mistakes. Run, 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 run. The part is missing, of course. Part, router g.dart. We try again. Fantastic, and we can see everything got green. And if we take now a look into our folder structure, hopefully we can see that in a sec. Why is it not visible? It should be. So, here we go. As you can see, we created now this route, and I just wanted to show you that generated file here, because it's quite interesting to see. So we got this home route. You see, we have this variable that's getter method here that returns all the routes, and it does all the heavy lifting for you. So the push, the go, everything is implemented here. And wherever we want to use that now, for example, in our homepage, if we have here a body with our let's say a column and an children elevated button, and we can pass in here now the home route and directly can say go, and that's it. Zack. And we navigate here. We need that now and text. So. And with that, we have our navigation implemented, and we are sure that we are type saved, and we are sure that we navigate to the right places. So that's pretty much everything you have to do to start with GoRouter at the end. Yeah, so questions so far? Yeah? Yeah? All right. So it's just in between till I got the next slides up, so I thought I overcome that with some questions. Yeah, but what you can see is it's actually quite easy to start with GoRouter. You can create all of these. You can create the nested routes in the same way. You have to be a bit careful. You have to be a bit careful with shell routes in that case because they have to be top level. But at the end, if you have defined them once, you can use them right away. Cool. So where have we been? Here, shell routing. I talked already about that. Shell routing mentions that we want to create a sub-navigation stack in our navigator. And probably some of you have already implemented that with the navigator package itself, so from Flutter out of the box. This is a real pain. So I will show you what we want to achieve. So the thing is, we have our material app. There usually lives a root navigator that all of us can access. That's the easiest way to go. That one usually don't have any parts of it or anything else. So we want now a bottom navigation bar, right? So that one needs to have its own nested navigator. And then this nested navigator takes care of, for example, the profile page and the settings page. Fair enough. But we have also that profile detail page there. And this one shouldn't show a bottom navigation bar, maybe. So it is living inside of the root navigator, and we want to go back there. So how would we do that in pure navigator style? We would have this nice little root navigator true mentioned. So that means now we have to take all the heavy lifting, everything that we have to pass in and so on, just with that flag. And we have to always distinguish between the different routers that could exist somewhere. You know, that one example with the bottom navigation bar, but maybe you saw in our app at the beginning, we had a modal which had its own router instance in between. So that there was an own navigation part only for the bottom modal sheet. If we would do it with this, we would have to distinguish, is it now the navigator that lives next to the context? Is it the one that lives next to the widget's context? Or is it the one on the root level? And that gets really frustrating to work with in the normal navigator style. So how do we do that in shell routing? The cool thing is, first of all, that we work with keys. And there comes also the benefit. If you only have one file, you have directly access to all of that. So, and what we do is you say that the root navigator has the root navigator key. And in the shell, you give it an own navigator key. In this case, the shell navigator key. Cool. And with that, you build a shell route. So the page that you create here is a page that lives more or less on top of everything else. And you show only the parts that you want to replace. So that means the shell route getting created, it creates the bottom navigation bar, for example, and all the other views that are on top will be injected. This is the child that you can see here. So how does the menu widget look? Something like this. It's a very big scaffold at the end where you have like a stateful widget that you can see inside of the onTap method, because all of the different tabs that you can take needs to set up the state. No magic state management here. It's very basic. But at the end, this one will be shown. That looks then like this, for example. So you have the home page, the profile page, the settings page, and the child widget. You see it on top there. It's the inside of the body. It's widget.child. Is just the injected page that you want to show. So the settings page is that child at the end. Good. So how does the full example look? We can work with the router config. We pass in shell routes. This is the creation of a sub navigator at the end. And inside of that, we have different routes at the end defined. In our case, it is the profile. And I talked already about the root navigator style. And what you can see here now is that we define the parent navigator's key. And this is exactly what I wanted to say, that we say now we don't want to use that nested navigator, but we want to use the parent navigator. And if we take a closer look here, the cool thing about that is we solve a lot of problems. I have even a slide for that, fantastic. You see, because we define that in this one large file for the routing, we have not to check all the places where we maybe used our navigator to push and pop and go somewhere. So that means we have one place where we look for the routing stuff, and we navigate there, and we don't have to check which navigator we are using. We just define it in this file, and we are sure that it works correctly. That's a pretty much big benefit. So how does that look at the end? You click somewhere, we click again on the shell profile, and you can see there is no bottom navigation bar at the end. But there should be an easier way. I mean, if we take another look here, that looks like a lot of code that we have to write, okay? And as you see, maybe this is again in the GoRouter style without the benefit of the GoRouterBuilder. So if we do that with GoRouterBuilder, we can do the same thing. And I said already that the shell routing has to be top level. So in this case, for example, we can see that we define with an @typed shell route the shell route that we want to have. And if we take a look in the class of shell route, this is just a builder function that returns us a widget which passes in the navigator. the navigator is a bad name. It could be just a child again. So that is the same thing as before. And this one will be just always created. Inside of the profile detail route that we worked before, we just pass in this parameter and pass it in, and our build runner will understand that and runs with the right navigator key. And with that, we have the same behavior as before, and that should work perfectly fine. So that means we have defined that, we use the right navigators, we have defined it all in one class. There you have it, the easier solution. All right, so what we learned, we can add now bottom navigation bars with shell routes. We set up the shell routes and use different navigator stacks. And I just checked right now the time, and it's getting a little bit too much time there. So I will skip the live coding for now. I will set that to the end. If we have then still some minutes left, I would then do the live coding because of the switching and everything. I think that makes more sense. I hope that's fine for everyone. All right, next part is deep linking. And deep linking is quite interesting. So for people who don't know what deep linking means, it's usually you get a link as a customer, you want to click that link and come somewhere in your app. As an e-commerce use case, for example, you get from your friend a product promoted, you click on the promotion key and you want to be linked on that product directly. You don't want to be at, I don't know, home screen or anything. You want to directly see that product. For our use cases, we make more or less invoices. It is more like we want to send our back office an invoice. So we send them the link with the invoice number, and we want to see that in the app directly the right invoice. We don't want to search for it or anything. If the app is closed on the device, it will open up the device, and so on and so forth. So now we have two paths that we have to follow. First, the Android path and the iOS path. That is because we have to make a lot of setups here. But at the end, in the Android path, we just define some stuff in the Android manifest. And I don't know how that works here. Let's see the highlighter. Can you see that? No, wait, that's the laser pointer. Here we go. As you can see here, the only thing that is important that we have to change, we can see that directly in the documentation, is that part. And I created here a website. I did that with Firebase hosting very quickly so that we can publish something and I can just test it around. So I can highly recommend it. It works like a charm, even for iOS. So yeah, just use Firebase hosting, 2 seconds, CLI, very easy. The second part is if you check for the app signing, there is this digital links JSON. What happens here is that Android wants to verify that this domain is yours. Apple does the same thing. So if you are taking a deep link, they don't want that anyone can say, hey, I have this website, whenever you link there, I want to open my app. That would be a chaos, because if that URL is not under my control and I open up just any app, yeah, you can imagine what happens there. And so I blacked out here the SHA-256 key. Actually, it is quite public because whoever has access to that well-known page will directly know it. And these files are clear, so everyone knows where they are part of. And I don't have battery anymore. Just a second. So exactly, if we have that, we can very easily just execute this command. And as you can see here, for example, we have the URL specified. And this invoice 23 is not a real website in our case. But our Android device in this case understands that it needs to route inside of the app to whatever comes before invoice 23. And as you can see in our app, up here, I just made it very easy, but as you can see, it links directly to that page ID 23. So now, who has already done deep linking will see that this one is actually fake, because if you are executing this one, well, you don't test the URL. That means that could work on your local device without setting up anything in the well-known. You don't have to publish any file or domain. Whoever executes that locally on your device and you have set up the first step will automatically link or go to that page on your development machine. So this is a test for your local machine if you are routing to the right place, but it will not be a real deep link, like a real execution of URL. So that can be tested by creating a document or a file where you really create that link and go to it. Good. Next part is iOS. Well, you see already we switched from code to clicky bunty, I call it. That's like a very beautiful UI, and yeah, it's getting a bit interesting. So info plist, I think everyone knows that one. You have to add, and now it's getting a little bit small, the Flutter deep linking enabled part, which is a Boolean flag, which you say set on true, and that's it more or less. Oh, sorry, on yes. Boolean, yes, you know. Anyway, so now next part is you have to specify the associate domain. That works nearly the same thing like in Google. As I mentioned, we want to make sure that this domain is under our control. And I showed you now these screenshots, but this only works if you have a paid developer Teams account, a paid Apple developer account, because only with that you have the option to add this associate domains. It was a real red herring for me to search that part because I was trying to add that and it was not possible. But there is a way how you can add that also as an XML. So there is an XML part, you just add that, and it works also for normal developers like us. So I told already that there is a file that you have to host at the end. In this case, it's the Apple associate domain app file. And you can see there you just define the app links that you want to enable. So that you, in this case, it's the details view. You pass in the app IDs, which passes in the team ID that you want to have and the name of your application, bundle identifier, and which paths you want to allow to be navigated to. And at the end, some web credential stuff, which interests more or less only Apple. Where do you find the team ID? This is actually interesting because it's in the Apple developer page. And on the right side, the bundle identifier you find directly in Xcode itself. Good. All right, so how do we test that on iOS? Here, a very fun fact. I tested that. It works with web directly. This verification of the domain, it stands in the documentation, takes 24 hours. Not in my case. 5 minutes, it worked perfectly, really fantastic. So here in this case, we just execute this one in the CLI and directly navigate somewhere. But as I said, it also works directly from the browser. Right, so now we jump into the next live code. If this is okay for you, I would take now as much time as we have left and start to develop that stuff. And then we go back to the slides here and should be the best part, I guess. Right, so good. All right, so I talked already about the shell routing, and I think let's start with this one. So instead of having this typed go route, we want now to have a typed shell route. And inside of here, we don't define paths, but we need routes. And this one now needs to be a typed go route. In our case, we just add the home route here and say the path to it. And inside of our go route setup, we want to specify an initial location. This is the part where we want to go to. So we want to go always to the home path at the beginning. So that means we will jump right into this route here. Now something went wrong, I guess. Yeah, we defined that twice. We don't need that. So now I said already we have to define here the shell route part, if you remember. So we need to create a class for shell route, extends go shell route data. And inside of here, we just create again the shell route itself. And we need the, did I miss, extends, sorry for that. And we define the builder. And inside of the builder, it automatically creates the child widget here. We have the GoRouter state that we have access to if we need to redirect or anything. And at the end, we pass that further. We don't return super. We need a new page, which will be our wrapper for anything, so-called. So we have a scaffold in our case. Oops, sorry. We make a stateful widget in this case. We call it menu page. And inside of here, we have a scaffold with the app bar, just to make it clear what this looks like, which has a title. And this is our shell. And perfect. And now we have to specify where the child has to be, and we pass in that directly as the body. And this menu page receives also the required widget child. And now we have to pass in here the widget.child. Thank you so much. Final widget child, and I think that should be better. Now this can't be a const, right? No? The pros, sorry for that. Fantastic, great. So we have that, the childs are defined, fantastic. And in our router, we can now have a second look. Usually, when we now add here the menu page, we have to pass in the child, and that's pretty much it. All right, you complain about that? No? Yeah, no worries. Fantastic. So we get that in, and now our shell route is surrounding that home page at the end. So let's start the app and let's see how fast we open that up. So I run it on macOS now because it's usually a tad faster if you are running it on the main device. And let's see how long that takes and how much time we have left. 3 minutes, that's good. Let's see. Usually that works a little bit faster. So go. Open anyway. So, and we can see we navigated to Hello World. Is that what we wanted to see? Probably not. We forgot something. We forgot to execute the Dart build runner, of course. So Dart build runner, check, build. Yes, I did that beforehand, you know, that was the, oh no, I forgot, right. Very good. So we don't want to have a home then in this case. We would like to have the router config, which is the, which one, what was the name? GoRouter, I think. Yeah. So, and import the whole stuff. Fantastic. Const. Thank you. And the GoRouter has a problem with the home route. Annotation can only, yep. It can only apply to. Fantastic. So let's try it again. And we are building. And come on, I want to show you something before it's ending. No, still running not. No, the problem is we have to pass in the shell route. Great. And we are successful, fantastic, and run. Second build should be faster, hopefully. Open. And we crash. Build page must be implemented. Okay. Anyway, I guess before I start, I tried. All right, so live coding is a challenge, as always. So, but anyway, what we learned today is we know that deep links work out of the box for web in GoRouter. That's fantastic, big part. We can now enable deep links in our app. We can set up an Android and iOS, and we know how to test these deep links inside of our devices. Challenges that we faced when we implemented in real life were the three followings. That were first, the one file part. Especially we have a microservice part or microservice structure more or less with a lot of micro packages that takes different things. We have a lot of callbacks that needs to go back into this router page, which is a little bit of a pain. So if you have a lot of small packages, maybe not the best solution at the moment. I don't know, we still search for the best possible way here. But yeah, as soon as we have that, I will introduce that to you. The second part is with Flutter 3.2.2, if you use a lot of pop in your application and you want to migrate now, well, pop scope changed a little bit the behavior, especially in Android, and suddenly we had problems with our state. Shouldn't be a problem if you already have a fantastic architecture with streams and so on and so forth, but for us that was quite a headache. The next part is GoRouter is quite powerful and it needs time to understand and also to share it with your team. So if you have a bigger team, it takes time to really grasp all the concepts. So don't underestimate that. Cool, last part. All right, so easy navigation, no heavy lifting, everything has been done from the router package. You have a declarative way, type-safe parameters, type-safe way of navigating, fantastic. It's clear and concise, we liked it a lot, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for your attention.